And we are already here. Paula is here, and welcome to this evening of Together on the Path. And it's not as such the Demystifying Tantra course, but tonight we're having Paula Chichester joining us to lead our meditation for us and open for questions from the forum and taking questions up front. And my name is Lars, and I'm the SPC of LACSAM, a center under the FPMT in Zurich, Switzerland. And I'm sitting here online while you can see also we have people in the center somewhere, not too many tonight, and people from all over the world. So that's really wonderful, and welcome to you all. And tonight we won't have any translators, and there's not even a function in this chat room or room right now where we can offer translation. I can see Celiana, you joined us tonight. Hi, you will be here tomorrow. And tomorrow we'll have a guided Green Tara sadhana by Paula with 4 translators in German, French, Spanish, and Italian. So back to normal tomorrow. Tonight, we won't have any translators, so it will be in English. And next Tuesday, a facilitator from the LACSAM team will lead a meditation which has the same topic as the Tantric Demystifying Tantra, and also no translators. So tomorrow, a sadhana, Green Tara with translators, and then 3 or 4 more Wednesdays with Paula about Demystifying Tantra. During the talk, I will post some links in the chat or post about the program and where to submit questions in this form, and also the sadhana, so you can just read it, download it, and follow on screen, on your own screen tomorrow if you need that. And if you want to ask questions, raise your electronic hand, which you will find in the toolbar in the bottom of Zoom, or you can just write the question in the chat, and I will see too that it's read out aloud. And if there's no one in the center, otherwise they can ask Christian to read up the question.
We are 2 in the center. Yeah, it's not so many, but we are.
All right. And we are 24 participants, so that's wonderful. People from all over the world. So very wonderful. And we're still getting people in, giving one more second. So tomorrow would be the sadhana with translators. No translators today. Next Tuesday, no translators. And then all Wednesdays we'll have 4 translators. Questions now in this read up from the form, or if you just need to ask questions up front, raise your electronic hand. So I think we should pass on the word to Paula, so I will spotlight her. Welcome, Paula. Yeah, here we go.
Thank you. It's nice to, wonderful to be back and see you all again.
And you're a little low, Paula. Can you perhaps turn up the volume?
Does it make any difference with the mic?
Yeah, that's maybe better.
Maybe just make it closer to my mouth or something.
Yeah.
Maybe I can, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe that's better. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I don't want to talk too loud because I'm at my brother's house in Northern California. I decided to come visit where there was a bit of a break in the pandemic, and yeah, and it's very interesting here because of all the fires. You probably read about them in the news. If you hear me coughing, it's because the air here is pretty intense. We can't see across the valley, and yeah, it's and the floods everywhere. I mean, these are really turbulent times, and I think some people might wonder, well, why are we, doing what we're doing? And I think I said this before. It's really important that and in these turbulent times, that we find methods to stay calm and present and sane and compassionate. And so I think that Dharma is going to become more and more important as the world gets more and more complicated, and climate disasters coming. And so I encourage us to continue with our practice at whatever level it is. I mean, this class has been about Tantra, and but if Tantra doesn't work for you, if it's not something that you really are, that suited for, then it doesn't matter. No, not everybody doesn't have to practice Tantra. I think the most important thing is to find what level of Buddhist meditation works for you, and do that. It's sort of like start where you are instead of trying to be something else. And I mean, it's good to stretch ourselves a little bit, but I'm just saying that if anybody feels like, oh, I can't relate to this. So we'll just start tonight, and thank Lars and everybody and my brother for hosting me and giving me a place to kind of rest a bit. So let's just start with a meditation. And just hello, I can see friends here. And let's just start by coming together as if we were in a room together. And bringing our awareness into our bodies and our hearts. And we just check in with what's going on in our minds. If we have issues, just let them be there, or our bodies. And we begin just by focusing on our breathing. I think everyone knows this, but we'll just go through it anyway. You can either close your eyes or just look down your nose. Sometimes it's helpful if you can to keep your eyes open, actually, because when we're not meditating, our eyes are open. And so it's kind of helpful to develop awareness with open eyes. But if it's too distracting, then you can close your eyes. And just bring our attention to the breath going in and out. Feeling the breathing coming in through the nostrils and into the lungs. Allowing it to penetrate a sense of relaxation through the body, the legs and the arms and the back, the belly relaxing. Making sure there's nothing tense around our abdomen, so our bellies can relax. Pay attention to the space around us, not necessarily intellectually, but just feel around the space around us. I think that allows us to transcend the sense of being stuck in a physical body, but that we actually have a subtle body that extends out in the space beyond this body. if your thoughts are racing, then we can bring our attention to the base of the spine. And imagine with the out breath that the energy goes into the earth and taking with it that speeded up winds that cause the mind to be thinking. Bringing the awareness into the body and the legs. And then because of the universal law of karma, we always set our motivation so that the karmic imprints that arise from this time we get to spend together is dedicated for enlightenment of all sentient beings. So depending on what suits you, you don't have to do this, but you can imagine Father on the right and the Mother on the left and all the beings around us. Without losing contact with our breathing, just with a smaller part of our mind, just remember the state of the world. And without being overwhelmed, just touching our hearts. And wishing all beings to be free, ultimately, of all subtle karmic winds and minds that cause us to be again and again in cyclic existence. And I think when we entertain ideas like that, it becomes very clear that we can't really do it without some kind of guidance. We've been in cyclic existence since countless great eons. And even if you don't believe that, just this life, we realize how our minds are uncontrollable. And one of the reasons why we do this breathing meditation is to gain some so that when we are confronted with objects that make our mind excited or negative, we can just be with that and kind of put a big smile around it and let it go rather than just reacting, which is our normal way of being. meditation gives us the chance to have a bit of space between what we experience and how we respond. And I think I spoke last time about the importance of developing those qualities of paying attention to what's happening. And not only paying attention, but learning to feel the energy of the body, so that by relaxing that, the mind relaxes and we have that space. Becoming a full, three-dimensional being. So we want to include an image of the Buddha in front of us for inspiration, or if you don't relate to Buddha, whatever image that you have that inspires you to become a better person, to want to let go of afflictive emotions and find loving inner peace. But I think most of us here are Dharma students. So we just imagine the Buddha. And breathing in comfort and relaxation of being protected, which comes from the total actual knowledge of how reality exists. And just having faith that that does exist, even if we haven't really fully even intellectually understood emptiness. Just imagine that it's like, everything in the mind is just washed clean. It's just spacious and open like the sky. And in the warmth of the sunlight is like the loving compassion of the Buddhas. Just as every time we breathe in, we just are bathed in that. And we find that space of refuge. We'll relax into that space of refuge. Just touching, feeling. If we have a lot of tension, just touch and feel and be with it. Eventually it will melt. And as we breathe in these blessings of Buddha, even if we just imagine them, eventually it becomes more of a felt sense of relaxation and openness and letting go. But we just start with imagination. But as we're breathing it in, and as we exhale, we imagine that little, energy like rays of light go out and touch all of us so that we are connected in our space together here in our Zoom, even though we are all over the planet. It's just so amazing that we can do this. So that we can help each other and support each other as Sangha. And we can begin to include everyone on this Zoom, their families and their friends and their families and their friends. But pretty soon, as we breathe in these healing powers of emptiness and compassion, skillful means. The ultimate healing, comes from letting go of false views of how the world exists and all this fear that comes from clinging to ourselves, that as we breathe in this clinging and these fears and these anxieties, they're just being bathed away like the sun shining after the rain. And it goes out through us and touches all the world. Bringing not only intelligence, but compassion and skill, knowing what to do, wisdom. We can't give up. Holiness says never give up. Connecting with that precious bodhicitta, I will attain enlightenment for the sentient beings. No matter how many lifetimes it takes, I will do this. It's the one thing that makes the life truly meaningful. It's the one thing that can transform all adverse circumstances into the path of enlightenment. And that's why we study, and that's why we meditate. It's all about that. So wonderful. So we can think, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By practicing all the 6 perfections of giving, morality, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom, may attain the state of a Buddha and be able to instantly benefit all sentient beings. How wonderful is that? And then we can just imagine that from the Buddha, we'll do quick purification and then start with the white light rays and nectars coming into our bodies, purifying all those obstacles in our bodies. And the red nectars and rays from the throat, purifying all the winds and the speech and all those thoughts, all those thoughts that we believe in that drive us into these different emotional states, just letting them completely be purified. All this talking, inner talking, outer talking. Red light penetrating through us and throughout all the universe. And then the blue light into our hearts, just wiping away all conceptual ideas, and it's just pure Dharmakaya mind, spacious awareness, purity, clarity, joy, love. And then all 3 all together, any subtle stains, completely purified. We just feel so fortunate that we have a perfect human rebirth. We have perfect gurus. We even have worldwide web Zoom. We can be all together because we're a rare bunch, us. There's not very many of us. And then Buddha comes to our crown. Becomes very, very small. Goes to the crown chakra, the throat chakra, the heart chakra, and then that golden light, Buddha's golden radiating aura, penetrates through all our subtle winds and minds and brings us blessings, the renunciation, look, we realize we can't find happiness in material things anymore. Not ultimate happiness. And even in relationships with people, it's we do that, and we need to do that, and it's part of life, it's part of our bodies, but the ultimate refuge is just in letting go completely. Into the Dhammakaya mind. And bodhicitta, this huge, 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 huge love that you can feel from His Holiness, Mama Zopa, friends. It's just the same love, the baby love we have, just big, big, big love. You all know that. And then completely letting go into this interconnected sphere of subatomic awareness. So we better stop meditating. We came here to talk. Hi, Celiana.
Paula?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but
You can't hear me?
it's something with the volume, I think.
Oh, sorry.
Are you using an iPad?
Yeah.
Maybe in settings, if there is such a feature,
I think I did it. Yeah,
should,
I'll try.
plug in the microphone. I think you're still talking through the iPad input.
Okay.
So you need to choose in your, it might be setting, our assistant is finding information for me right now about where to find. There's maybe a drop-down menu where you pick which input source you want to, and it needs to be the microphone.
Oh, geez, I'm sorry. Let's see, how do I do this?
Yeah, because it's still on the low side.
Oh, I'm sorry, you can't hear me. I don't see how to do it. I hit sounds. Let's see. Keyboard click. Maybe it's on the Zoom thing, you know, when you do the Zoom.
No.
Yeah, I don't see anything about the.
It doesn't.
What if I just talk louder again? Sorry, I got this microphone.
Yeah,
just to
maybe.
solve that problem.
One person in a comment writing, I hear her fine. So maybe just talk louder. Yeah.
Yeah.
Zoom settings, audio, no. But
okay.
Could be.
No, I'll have to. Maybe I can Google it for next.
All right. People respond that they hear you very well. Okay. That's wonderful. Great. So if you talk loud and
yeah,
then we can continue. Sorry for this.
Yeah, I'll also sit closer to the screen. If it's not coming through the mic, then I'll just sit closer because that should make it louder too.
Thank you, and sorry for the interruption.
No, that's fine. We finished our meditation. You can interrupt me anytime. I don't care. We can interrupt in the meditation even. So is that better? I'm sitting really close now.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah. Okay.
And we see you very well, so that's fine.
Yeah. So I just wanted to tell you that, you know, this is kind of like an open discussion now we have for an hour, and I have a few questions that were sent to me, but I mean, you can ask me any question. It doesn't necessarily have to be about the material that we've gone over. If you have other questions you want to ask, I'm really happy to answer anything. But let me just start by answering the ones that I got already, which somebody asked about, could we explain more about the subtle winds and energies and stuff? And so next week we're going to do a meditation, but the following week I'll do an hour and a half on the body, and we'll go into that more there. So just be patient, and I can't do a whole lot, but I think I can do quite a bit. So, and then another person asked, what if you don't know very much about subtle energies and drops and winds and everything, and you do tantric practice? Is it still doing that? And is it still working? Yes, it is still working with that, which is one of the reasons why I think I try to help people become more aware of it, because whether you're aware of it or not, it's moving the winds. And so it helps to have more success if you have a little bit more awareness of it. And also why I put a lot of emphasis on breathing and being putting awareness in your body, because that's, and sometimes it can some people when they're reciting mantras get pain in their heart or stuff like that. So yeah, so I think that was most of the questions. So yeah, there's not a lot to say. So we're just going to open it up for questions, right? Anybody have a question? And are you going to raise it? I mean, anyway, you'll take care of that.
People can raise their hands if they wish to ask directly, or you won't be spotlighted in the Zoom video, or if you wish me to read it up aloud, I can do it in the chat. And there's one question: do we need an emanation of God or goddess to bring us to the clear light, and why? Why can't we go there with our own mind? We can
go there with our own mind, and the reason we use these images, these deities, it just facilitates it to go quicker, But I mean, everybody when they die goes into the clear light. It's just that most people, unless they've studied some sort of death process, they're not aware of it. And really, the whole thing about deity practice is just to create more, I would say, create more merit, create more capacity, because it's only in the tantras that we get the understanding of the final dissolution at the death time of the what they call the three empties, the red increase, the white near attainment, the red increase, and then the black vision. And if we don't have awareness of that, then we cannot, the subtle mind doesn't become, the very subtle mind doesn't become manifest at the time of death. And that's how a person can attain enlightenment at the death time, is by contacting that. And so the whole point of these yogas is to be able to do that. At least this is what the teachings say. I don't know, I don't have any personal experience. I've never done that. But what great yogis are able to do is to go through that experience before they die, so that then they're very familiar with it. And so when the death comes, it's like a recipe they've done many times. It's something they've experienced, like, learning how to walk or ride a bike. It just is natural to them because they've done it so many times. But that takes an awful lot of experience of working with the central channel and bringing the winds into the central channel, which is something that you find exclusively in Tantra. So that's why we work with Tantra. And because there's 2 stages in Tantra, there's the generation stage, which is when we begin to work with the deities, and then the completion stage is more when we work with the subtle winds. And to prepare for that, you need to do the first stage. So that's why we work with deities. And also, I think it helps to overcome your ordinary appearance of who you are, and kind of like when you identify with a goddess or a deity of whatever, doesn't matter what gender. I mean, if you can be a female and have a male deity that you rely upon, like Chinrezig, or you can be a male and rely on a female deity like Tara, because in this body, whether you're male or female, doesn't really matter when it comes to enlightenment. You're not going to have a body like this, so it doesn't matter. You can choose, whatever deity inspires you. Just use that one. Gender really has very little place in Tibetan Buddhism. People are always like, people ask, well, I want to have a female deity. Well, if you want to have a female deity, a female person, do. But if you're attracted to be, if something feels more familiar to you, because I think most people that come to tantric practice most likely have had experience in a past life. And so you may have, been working with Chenrezig in past lifetimes. And so that feels better to you. So, it's not about gender. It's about what inspires you to be greater than the mind that you have now. It's like, what's going to inspire you to feel great love and bliss and emptiness for all beings. And so that's the whole point of it. And so if most people, their ordinary view of themselves isn't so, it's either like too much and they're full of pride, or to the opposite of pride, the kind of lower self-esteem. And when you work with the deity, it's beyond all that. It's just beyond any kind of ordinary mind, completely going beyond this day-to-day mind that this inner world that we live in, this like, I did this and he did that and she did that and I need to do this and why didn't I do this and I have to do this tomorrow. It's like the deity is not in that realm. The deity is in a more subtle experience. And so it helps us to transcend this blah, 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 blah when we work with the deity. So that's why we do it. Does that answer that question? Whoever it was? I mean, you can ask more.
Otherwise, the person can ask again and ask you to elaborate on it. Thank you. And
maybe, can you hear me? Yes, that answers, but I guess maybe a follow-up question is, can't you experience the clear light while you're awake by just meditating on the death process?
Yes, you can. You can. That's what I was explaining. That's what yogis do.
Okay. They don't do it through a deity.
Yes, they do. They have a deity, and it's through the deity practice that you do the meditations on the clear light. However, I mean, I don't think it's 100% necessary. I mean, in the Dzogchen tradition, when it's not, I don't think you have to go through a deity to get to the experience of Rigpa. I mean, I don't know for sure, but even within that tradition, though, almost all yogis have to go through Tantra before they can get to the experience of clear light. I don't know of any tradition, even though when Dzogchen is presented to Western people, they go kind of directly to the Ati Yoga, which is the highest. Like in Dzogchen, there's 9 yogas. It's a little bit different than our structure. But before you get to the highest one, which is meditating on the clear light, you have to go through Maha and Anu Yoga, and that's deity practice. So it seems to me that that's the doorway into the subtle body. And it may be because of the lineage and the blessing. It may just be that that's just the mechanics of how working with a human body works. How's that? What do you think, Celiana? I mean, Celiana knows as much as I do about this stuff, so she can also contribute.
Thank you. And then a question from the Laksam Center.
Yes, I have a question, Paula, about the dakas and dakinis. So it ties a little bit to what you were talking about before about the deities. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about who or what the dakas and dakinis are, and also especially the lion-faced dakini that we have the prayer to in the prayer book.
Okay, I'll do my best. Well, the lion-faced dakini, well, first of all, there's different levels of dakas and dakinis. There can be a daka or dakini. I think the definition is a being that helps you to attain enlightenment. And so it can be your boyfriend, it can be your daka because he helps you attain enlightenment. There's like an ordinary daka, but then they're the extraordinary dakas and dakinis, and they are enlightened beings, that like the lion-faced dakini, And Dakini is just, it's kind of another word for a female deity, you know. So, but the lion-faced Dakini, she's particularly, she, you know, they all have their jobs. And I don't know, like, the history of how the lion-faced Dakini evolved, or, you know, where, but her whole thing, Sengi Dolma, is to clear obstacles, right? So that's why we venerate her or use her with that mantra, Akasamarachisaras, that's her mantra. And, you know, each deity has a particular job to do, a particular aspect that they work with. And so the lion-faced Dakini, that's just what she's, what she does, is she clears obstacles. So that's all I can say, really, is about, you know, they're, I mean, some people think they're kind of like, in the Christian world, we might call an angel, you know, but they basically are just, you know, they talk about, like, I'll give you a story that about what I would consider a Dakini. I have a friend, I was thinking about him the last time when we were talking about being on the river. Remember I used this metaphor about awareness, about being on the river and going down the river. Well, I had a friend who was a river guide. And that's kind of where I discovered that, was going down this river with him. And it says in the Chakrasamvara Tantra that chakra practitioners of Chakrasamvara, at the time of death, a Dakini will come and help them. You know, at the time of death, like Vajrayogini will come and help. And Jack, his name was Jack Morrison, and Jack, unfortunately, when he was early 50s, I think, he got thyroid cancer. And it was in the last stages of his life, you know, the last like 3 months or 4 months of his life, when out of the blue, this woman who knew him in high school came and took care of him, and they fell in love. And she took care of him and was like, did everything for him. And then we were able to go there, and just before he died, gave him the whole Chakrasamvara self-initiation, and he rose as a deity, and the next day he died, and it was just an amazing thing. So there's something really magical about this tradition, that when you have faith, that, you know, the Dakinis will come, they will help you. And I'm, you know, and I don't know who she was or what it was, but at that moment, that time, you know, for him, she was Vajrayogini, you know, she was the lion-faced Dakini. And so I think the thing we have to understand is that our ordinary vision is colored by our karma, you know. And so even ordinary people might appear as ordinary to us, but maybe they're not, you know, maybe they're not. And that's something to think about. Like the other day, you know, I was in Shetland, and I just thought, you know, I think I'm probably already in Vajrayogini's Pure Land. I just can't see it, you know. And all these sheep are the Dakas and Dakinis, and you know, I'm in this beautiful place, and it's just because my karmic vision is still not pure enough to see it that way. And so people can come to us, you know. Sometimes you just meet, like I know other stories of people out of the blue, you know, a woman will come and say, meet them and talk with them for an hour, and it changes their life, you know. And that looked like a total ordinary woman, but maybe it was a Dakini, you know. And so I think it's important for us to remember that what we see isn't necessarily how things are, you know. Like they say that, you know, we see water, Apreta sees blood and pus, and God see the nectar, but it's the same thing, you know. And so if we have pure vision, you know, where I live in the Shetland Islands is Vajrayogini's Pure Land, but I don't see it that way, you know. But if I can begin to entertain that idea, then that would help me. And if I can begin to entertain, you know, that what if those sheep are Dakas and Dakinis, you know? So it's sort of like that. So we have to, I think it takes a lot. I mean, and I'm not saying we need to be stupid, you know, about it and just sort of have this blind faith and not recognize harm or, you know, delusion as it arises. But at the same time, that's why Tantra is very difficult. We have to kind of walk the middle line between having, you know, this more rational view, this long run view, but at the same time be willing to suspend that for the sort of like the magical emanations to have, because if we don't kind of allow ourselves to entertain that world, it's never going to be there. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, you know, I mean, I've thought for years, what are these beings and do they truly exist out there? And yeah, I think they do. You know, they do. I mean, this in the Sambhogakaya realm, there are beings, you know. I mean, Lama Zopa says we're surrounded by Buddhas all the time, but we don't see them. We're surrounded by Dakinis and Dakinis all the time, you know. So we just have to, I think that's why refuge is so important, because the stronger we have refuge in bodhicitta, I think the more we're able to be protected by them, right? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's quite funny that you should mention refuge, because the next question is actually about refuge.
Okay.
Talk about timing. Can you possibly please tell us more about refuge and how to create it inside ourselves during meditation?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's something that we could do a whole class on. I think it's important to study in the Lam Rim the causes of refuge, and I'll just go over it, which is it's that it's almost the same as the three principal aspects of the path. I mean, in Papanka's book, they say it's fear, but I don't really like to use the word fear. I think it's more, you know, fear of the lower realms, and I think that that's a kind of too provincial of a way of looking at it. I think it's more that we once we begin to adopt the view that that we can actually put down our denial and recognize that we are suffering, you know, that waking up in the morning and me not having a pure view, me not understanding emptiness, me already my mind thinking this, that, the other, is a form of suffering. You know, the fact that I'm grasping an inherent existence causes me to feel uncomfortable. You know, I'm not like totally blissed out when I wake up in the morning. I mean, after I take refuge, I can be, but that's taken a long time for me to cultivate that inner peace. But if we can just begin to recognize it, just having a mind and a body that's thrown by delusion and karma is a form of suffering, and that we cover it up. We're really good at what they call the suffering of change. You know, I don't know how much you studied Lam Rim, but the suffering of change is the fact that, you know, I can go downstairs and have a cup of coffee and then I don't think about it. And then I can go out to work and I don't have to think about it. And then I can like we just can distract ourselves constantly, even more so now, so that we're not aware of this kind of heaviness that we have, you know, just being a human. And so the first step in taking refuge is like, I want to do better than that, you know, because that's the most fundamental layer of suffering. And then there's, of course, suffering of suffering, which a lot of people experience just in, you know, they don't feel good, they're depressed, they're anxious, they have emotional afflictions. That's the suffering, you know, that's like, you know, regular suffering, right? So we have these three sufferings. There's all pervasive suffering, which is I'm talking about, which is just kind of just having a mind and a body. And then, you know, the suffering of change, which is so popular now. We can just pick up our phone and entertain ourselves all day long, so we're not aware of what's really happening inside. And then the other one is the like, you know, you break your leg and you're hurt, or your husband leaves you and you're painful, or, you know, a flood comes and you lose your house, which is, you know, we're like right now, the air all over California, you can't go outside, you know. So I mean, you can, but it hurts. So so if you recognize that, right, then you say, well, there has to be an alternative. You know, I'm not going to accept this is how it is. That's sort of like the existential, let's just be depressed, you know. So we don't want to go there. So then you meet the Buddhas. And so the next cause is called, it's faith, you know, but it's not like blind faith. It's not like a lot of people might think religion is about. It's a faith that's born out of study, you know, faith that's born out of looking at and analyzing the Buddha's teachings and getting certainty from knowing people who've been either high lamas or people who've been at it longer than you are. And you can see that, oh, this person's really changed a lot in their life because they've been practicing these practices, because they take refuge in Buddha. So taking refuge is more about studying and getting confidence in it. And that's on the intellectual level, right? And then then comes the actual experiential refuge. We're doing is a way of creating an inner refuge, because Lama Yeshe used to teach, and it's classic. It's this Lama was somebody who taught about a lot about, outer refuge is the triple gem. It's the Buddha, it's his teachings, and it's our friends, And the inner refuge is our own subtle wind and mind. And so that's one of the reasons why we want to have a deity and do tantric practice, is because we begin to create this place inside of ourselves where we can suspend that all-pervasive suffering that I talked about, that fact that we wake up and we're tense and we're minds are racing and we're depressed or whatever, and by working with, I think it just takes time and it takes faith, which is a belief, a certainty that if I do this practice over and over again, eventually it will begin to work. And it does. Tantric practice does work, so that when you sit down to take refuge, you can feel that relief of that tension through doing these practices. And so that's inner refuge. And then Lama used to talk about the secret refuge, which is even more subtle, which is when the more and more you understand emptiness, the more and more blissful your body becomes. And so then your refuge is in your channels and winds and the more secret, subtle level, that's the secret emptiness. And then the final emptiness is understanding, and the final refuge is understanding emptiness. And even when we, on the first level of just understanding the refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha, the ultimate refuge is in understanding emptiness. It's the ultimate protection. It's the ultimate cure. And that's why when I was talking about dakas and dakinis, it's about the fact that if we believe everything we see about our lives, that doesn't help us to understand emptiness. And it doesn't mean that we're going to make up, like Tantra isn't about making up another world to put on top of the world we already have. It's about deconstructing the mind, the deconstructing the grasping and inherent existence that causes us to perceive this world as concrete and self-existent out there. And so what taking refuge does and what doing the meditations on Lam Rim does is to help us to deconstruct this sense, this overwhelming, congested sense of I and other, right? So what we're really taking refuge in is our future understanding of that. And if we have faith that it's possible because of reading the teachings of Buddha, knowing people like His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Lama Zopa Rinpoche and Mingyur Rinpoche and these different lamas that are around, that Sakya Trinzen, you can perceive that they don't have them. And that's what you're taking refuge in. And in Tantra, the ultimate refuge is in the teacher, But then the final cause of refuge is compassion. Why are you doing it? And the more compassion you have, the easier it is to let go of the sense of I. And that's why compassion is such an important aspect to cultivate, cultivate love and wishing for all beings to be free. And it doesn't exclude myself, And so I've always said I don't really know how it works, but if you just do it with faith, that's all I can say. If you just do it, and every day you sit down and you take refuge because you have some sense of certainty that it's going to work, then over time it does. Over time it does. And I think the Tantra, the deities help, the mantras help, the study helps. It's a whole system that will help us to transcend this experience of being a human being. We can become with Tantra, we can become an enlightened being and still be in this body. I mean, that's the most amazing thing. You know, you look at Lama Zopa Rinpoche and you can see he has a body, you know, and yogis, what they do is, you know, when they do those, we're talking about the death process, when they go through the death process, if they actually can get down to their subtle mind and the clear light, and they meditate on emptiness, when they complete that meditation, they come out of that meditation and they still have a physical body, this body, you know, this flesh blood body, but it doesn't feel like that to them anymore. They're not bound by that anymore. You know, they have a subtle enlightened body, but they're still walking around, and they can still talk to us, and they can still eat, they can still get sick, they can still die, but they don't experience in the way that we do. And so that is why we want to practice Tantra, because we can do that in this very life if we have enough potential behind us and enough faith, and faith based on study and certainty. You know, this idea that, and then knowing ourselves. Like, I think part of it is kind of knowing how best to work with the karmas that we have. We might not get it this lifetime, but everything that we do, even if we're not very good at the tantric practice, is creating imprints for future lives. And if we believe in future lives, then it's a wonderful thing, because they say it just takes 16 lifetimes, you know, so instead of countless great eons. So that's what we're taking refuge in. We're taking refuge in the possibility that enlightenment is possible. And we project, you know, the Buddha in front of us, or the deity in front of us, or the guru in front of us, because that is a symbol of our future attainment, right? And also, when we visualize the Buddha, we visualize the guru, the subtle form of that guru is there, you know, and we do receive blessings. And I have a feeling it has something to do with quantum mechanics, how it all works, but I don't know yet. And I think one day, these really cool people like Richard Davidson and all these like scientists, they're studying Buddhism. I think one day it might even be explained by science, which will be wonderful, because then more people will want to practice. You know, it will come out of the realm of religion and go into the realm of reality, which is already happening. You know, with ours. Anyway, that's enough about that. So next question. Is that good? Does that help, Refuge?
Thank you. Otherwise, the question can be elaborated upon in the chat, or people could raise their hands. So the next question is, are there individual stream of consciousness, or are there different manifestations of one field of consciousnesses?
Buddhism, we all have our individual consciousnesses. And that when we become a Buddha, we are our own individual Buddha. It's not like we become one big, like we join the club of Buddhas, but we all have individual streams of consciousness in this lifetime, through all kinds of forms of bodies. And so what happens is, when we attain enlightenment, it's that stream of consciousness becomes a Buddha.
Where can we start practicing Tantra?
Where can we start? You can come tomorrow night.
And my friend has died, 86, on August 5th. Mindful encounter with Rinpoche made Pova for him. He was not Buddhist, but the best human being, so caring and always caring for others without expectations, extremely generous. I do not read him the Book of the Dead, as he was not Buddhist. I wonder where his mind is and what meditation I can do for him.
I would just pray for him. And I don't think you have to be a Buddhist to go to a Buddhist Pure Land. You know, you don't, my mom wasn't necessarily, she'd taken teachings and stuff like that, but Lama Zopa said when she died, she probably went to Vajrayogini's Pure Land, because she was like your friend who's 86, you know. So I think the main thing is just keep connected with that person and just pray for them to have a really auspicious rebirth. That's all you have to do. Just keep sending them love, you know. If you want to, you can light a stick of incense for them, but I don't think that's necessary. Yeah.
And You can still raise your hand if you do have questions, or write them in the chat. And here's a question that goes back to last week's Together on the Path, with a discussion: what are deities? And the discussion was, are they real, or are they just a figment of our constructive imagination, a collective, or are they actually real as such?
I think they actually are real as such. And they, I mean, because this is something that, you know, I've been thinking about for a long time, but the latest book I read, because some people like to think, oh, they're just like, you know, an archetypal thing that we fabricate with our own mind. But I think that there is a more subtle realm that the deities inhabit. And that's how that they're able to bless our minds. I don't think we would receive the blessings that we do if they were just imaginations of our own mind. But that's my personal feeling. And we always see the deities also a manifestation of the guru, which is also a manifestation of our own potential. So, you know, when you do tantric practice, you always feel like my mind is inseparable with the guru's mind, inseparable with the mind of the deity. But I do think that in you know, a part of the universe that we don't understand, that there are, because when we attain enlightenment, we have there's different bodies of the Buddha, and there's one way of talking about it is the I won't go into it too much, but we have a mental body, you know, and a form body, and the form body of the Buddha is a deity, you know, and that they inhabit a realm that we can't see with our gross mind. And so one of the reasons that we do tantric practice with the body is because we're creating the cause for us when we attain enlightenment, that we will have that form of a subtle body, like we will be another Tara. You know, it won't be the Tara, but our body will be manifesting as that form, you know, that we are practicing. So I think that, but you know, other teachings say that the deity is a manifestation of our, you know, pristine awareness, our own pristine awareness. But that doesn't preclude the fact that it could also be, you know, other minds of pristine awareness that are manifesting as a deity, right? So I don't know, does anyone want to contribute to that idea? I mean, what happens when people are like great yogis are meditating, they get visions of the deities. I mean, that's how we get different new practices, because someone will be doing a long solitary Tara retreat, and they'll get a vision of Tara, and she'll say, give him a new practice to do, and that becomes a new lineage, you know. And I know Lama Zopa years ago, he used to say, you know, the Tara comes to visit him every night. So, you know. No, it is. I see this one. Can I start? No, you can't really start Tantra on your own. You need to have an empowerment to start, because you need to be. One of the things I tried to mention the last time, and I know the first time I had talked about a whole lot of stuff, so it probably didn't catch everything. I was trying to give like a whole class, you know, 4 lessons in one. But what's really important in Tantra is to have a qualified teacher that's connected to a genuine lineage. And there are people out there, you know, saying, oh, I'm a tantric date practitioner, la, 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 and they made it up, or they got it from somebody else that made it up. And for it to be authentic and to really get to that realm we were talking about, you know, not just some, you know, bogus ideas some human made up, then we need to be connected to an authentic lineage that goes all the way back to the Buddha. And so that's why we have teachers who give us empowerments, because then we connect. It's almost like, I think I've used the analogy before of tuning into a radio station. You know, there's all these different radio frequencies out there, you know, and we want to make sure that when we turn on our dial to get enlightened, we want to be tuned into the radio station that goes directly to the Buddha, because we want an authentic lineage that will lead us there. We don't want to end up in some other realm some like spirit realm. There's lots of realms besides this human realm, and we don't want to follow someone who's been connecting with some spirit who's saying, well, I'm a Buddha, and now I'm going to teach you, another person who's channeling some, body from love somewhere, that's all over the place. I'm channeling whoever. Well, we only want to channel Buddha, so we want to go to Buddha's channel. And so that's why we need an empowerment and qualified teacher, and places like Logsan Meditation Center, where we have friends that will support us that are part of this. It's almost like like the Navy SEALs or the Green Beret, it's like this. It's like it is a special group, and it is almost an elite group. And I'm sorry about that, but it's not like anybody can join. Anybody can join. But it's like you kind of join this group of people who are on the path to enlightenment. And that's why in the beginning I say, let's all connect to each other, because on a subtle level, we all help each other. But it's like we're on a boat to enlightenment, but the person who's driving the boat is the guru, So we need to, we can help, but we can help each other. But without a qualified master, very difficult. So no, you can't just pick up a book and start practicing Tantra. There wouldn't be very much power there. Okay, is that okay?
Yeah, and the next question is, can you retell and explain the incidence of controlling external phenomena, like the example of clear sky and no rain in Vermont, or other examples, and how is that possible?
Well, I can't tell you exactly how it's possible, although it has happened to me too. It does happen to us, even though we're not completely aware of it. And what happens is, and like I said, I don't really know the quantum mechanics of it, but okay, I was explaining that our bodies are made up of 5 elements, like earth, water, fire, air, and space. And I don't think anybody disputes that, because that's what our planet is made of, right? Earth, water, fire, air, and space. And we are of this planet. We are organic beings, just like the plants and the animals. And it's the forces of the 5 elements that cause all of life to happen. And then there's mind, and mind kind of is what animates these 5 elements, right? And so when yogis are able to gain control over these winds, and the winds are connected to the elements, you see, then that's how they're able to, because in the death process, we're dissolving the elements. We dissolve the earth element, and the water element, and the fire element, and the air element, and the space element. Then all the elements are dissolved, and all that's left is the consciousness, because it's consciousness that animates the elements. But when you dissolve the airs, the winds that connect to the elements, what's left is pure consciousness. And so yogis who can do that are able to also, because they can control the elements, the winds of the elements in their own bodies, they can control the winds of the elements on the planet. So you hear stories in Tibet about yogis stopping like floods, and stopping earthquakes, and stopping hail, and I don't think you have to be enlightened to do that. I mean, Milarepa could do that, and yeah, and also there are beings that control, according to Tibetan, world, there are being spirits that also have to do with controlling the weather. And so this gets into the more shamanic side, when you contact the Nagas and these beings and make friends with them, then they will help you control the weather. Now, how all this works, if to explain it scientifically, I can't tell you, but I have seen it work, even with myself doing Naga pujas. I've seen stop the rain and bring the rain. 30th century Rinpoche, keeping the sky open. And I mean, I know Lama Zopa Rinpoche, I don't know if he's still doing, but he's been doing practices for the pandemic every single day in Kopan. And he does practices every single day to help control the situation with the global warming and everything that's going on. But the situation is that it also is dependent on the karma of the human beings. So probably one of the reasons that Kirti Senchen Rinpoche was able to control the weather at Milarepa Center, because we, it's a place out in there's not a lot of other people around. And maybe it was the fact that everybody around him was open to his greatness as a yogi, that he was able to do that. I don't know if that makes any difference or not. I don't know how much a yogi's power to transform the outer world is dependent on the karma of the people in that world. You would think that if it wasn't, we could solve all the problems right away. So it stands to reason that there's some karmic connection there. But I can't tell you exactly how it works, but they do it. Yeah. And you can do it too if you get good enough at these things. And I think shamans of other traditions can do this too. So it's not something that's just, because we have human bodies and we all have human bodies. So whether it's an esoteric tradition from Tibet or an esoteric tradition from Africa or esoteric tradition from South America, people in the past knew how to do this stuff. And, we forgot as we became more and more modern and Christianity took over and all that stuff was considered the work of the devil. But it's not possible. It is possible to relearn these powers. But in Buddhism, it's only with the bodhicitta motivation are you able to contact these powers to help. It has to be with the motivation only to benefit others. Otherwise, it's not good. It's not, and probably won't even happen. So that's always important. The most important thing in Buddhism is bodhicitta motivation. And that's the only reason to practice Tantra. Yeah.
Right. And can you suggest some books that can help me starting with Tantra? And let me start by saying in the chat, I posted a document sent to me from Paula with suggested readings. But nevertheless, could you recommend some really good book to start with?
Well, I think the books I listed, there's Lama's book, Introduction to Tantra. There's not a lot of books. There's that book on death, intermediate state, and rebirth. Once you have an empowerment, then there are many books to read, because there'll be books that explain what Tantra you've been initiated into. But until you get an initiation, there's not a whole lot that can be learned about it. Right? Would you say that, Celiana? That's kind of the case. Yeah. But I think Lama Yeshe's book, and it's a very popular book. It's like the most popular book. I think Wisdom Publications, it's gone through many, many, many printings. And it's popular in all the Tibetan Buddhist worlds, And so I would, and I think it's in Spanish. I don't know if it's in Italian, but I'm pretty sure it's been, so it's in all the languages. So I would just read that book, and you can read it free time. You can read it again. Yeah.
We wish to become enlightened in order to be of benefit and to liberate all sentient beings. So why haven't enlightenment achieved this already? I'm not really sure. We wish to become enlightened in order to be of benefit and liberate all sentient beings. So why haven't enlightenment? Maybe
why aren't we already enlightened or something? Why aren't we already enlightened?
Yeah, maybe the one posting the question would like to elaborate on it.
Yeah, well, because of karma, in a nutshell, we have to, there's nothing in this world that we experience that doesn't come without creating the cause. If you want to build a house, you have to have the money, you have to have a builder, you have to have the building, the wood and the concrete. If you want to become a nurse, you have to study and learn to become a nurse. If you want to have a baby, you have to have a man. If nothing happens without creating the cause for it. And so we can't attain enlightenment until we've created that cause. And we can't create the cause until we understand how. we have to learn how first. And so, and it's not easy. Attaining enlightenment is probably the most difficult task a human being could face. And it's only a rare being that can do it in one lifetime. And so the reason why we're not already enlightened is because we haven't created the cause. And so that's why we have to study. We study and we practice and we meditate in order to create the cause. And, and one of the things we need to train for is when we go to sleep at night, to train to die with the thought of, I want to attain enlightenment, so that when we take another rebirth, we'll be born in a place where we continue on the path to enlightenment. Otherwise, that's why bodhicitta is so important, because we have to continue to motivate all the time, every activity, as much as we can have the mindfulness, like eating, sleeping. I've seen, used to be this t-shirt I had. It's like, eat with bodhicitta, sleep with bodhicitta, play with bodhicitta, teach with bodhicitta, die with bodhicitta, because karma, every thought we have creates the cause for future results. And so if all of our actions can be motivated by bodhicitta, even if we just like wake up in the morning and go, today everything I'm doing is bodhicitta, and dedicate the end, everything I did today, I dedicate with bodhicitta motivation. Well then, and if we just feel it, I'm doing this, then slowly we create those causes to meet the right teachers, to have the bodies that can do the right practice, to have the right friends, to die with bodhicitta, so that in our next lifetime we can continue to practice, because it's a long process. And this life is really short, and we have to have a big enough vision to believe that there's more than this life. There's more than just what I'm experiencing this life. And I think the more we begin to familiarize ourselves with mind, we begin to see that mind doesn't begin with this body and die with this body. Mind goes on and on and on and on and on. And so the more imprints we can put on that mind for enlightenment, the faster we can get enlightened. I think that's enough. Yeah.
Yeah, and it keeps ticking in with questions, so that's wonderful. And here's a long one. Please talk about what could happen in case of ending the life of an animal due to compassion for its illness and suffering, but without knowing its karma. What could happen to its consciousness, and what practice could we do to help this sentient being?
Yeah, Lama Zopa is really into helping animals. And one of the things he does is he plays mantras all the time. Like, I haven't done it yet. I thought, well, I need to get a speaker that I can set up outside my house, because it's in the summer, it's surrounded by sheep, so that the sheep can hear the mantra, because you're putting imprints on their minds. And I know with Rinpoche, with his own dog, like, he'll sit down and he'll spend every day whispering Maitreya's mantra, the long Maitreya mantra, into the dog's ear. And or Om Mani Padme Hum. Or another thing Rinpoche does is when he drives through the countryside where there are animals, he'll blast the Sutra of Golden Light, out the radio, so that they hear it. Because one of the main ways, that's kind of, I think, the main way you can help animals is to continue to put imprints on their mind stream. Just like we were talking about before, we put imprints on our mind stream, we put imprints on animals' mind stream as well. And you can have, where your dog drinks, you can see, a picture of Buddha or something. So he gets the visual image of a Buddha as well, And so we just need to put imprints. And if you're lucky enough to be with the dog when it's dying, or the cat or the mouse or whatever it is, you say mantras to them and you blow mantras in their ears. And even after they've died, you can say mantras and then spit on them, or blow it into water and put the water on them. Or you can also put like money pills in their mouths when they're dying. That'll help them. Or give them money pills. Give a dog a money pill. Money pill is a little pill that you get from His Holiness is Gompa, where they say millions and millions of mantras, so they're like Buddha medicine. So there's lots of things we can do to help animals, but that's primarily what I've seen my gurus do. Oh, and make them circumambulate stupas, and you could put up, even if you just have a little tiny stupa, or a statue, you can take your animal, or take them around your house. If your house has a Buddhist image in it, and when you walk your dog, or your cats, you can't walk, but take them around the house, That's another thing. Like I used to do that one time when I was in one of my long retreats. I had a couple of dogs I took care of, and I would just take them around the satsai house every single day, and I'd go, okay, now we're gonna do our Dharma practice, and the smarter dog got used to it and knew that it had to walk around every day, So there's lots to be done. But I just saw a thing in the chat about what actually is enlightenment. So I better answer that. Well, enlightenment is when we have our consciousness that's completely liberated of karma and delusion. Then in a nutshell. So it's like right now, our consciousness, we don't have control over what's going on because karmas are constantly ripening. We have ups and downs all day long. We have these subtle bodies that are pervaded by ignorance, hatred, greed. We get sick, we get all this stuff, and in the enlightened being, that's all purified. That's what Sangye means. Sangye, Buddha, means completely enlightened, and like all the conditions, all the goodness of the Buddha, and everything completely purified. Sangye, Rinpoche says that a lot. So completely purified and completely accumulated, all the conditions. And Buddhas, they can see past, present, future. They have total clairvoyance. They have omniscient mind. It's kind of an amazing thought to think that this consciousness, can be that purified. It's possible.
Yeah. What is knowingness? Can you kindly expand on this?
Okay, right now, I'm hearing a chainsaw from the distance. That's knowingness. I hear that chainsaw. That's awareness, When the tea kettle goes off, you're aware of it, right? When you have a thought, you're aware of your thought. That's the capacity to know. We know, I mean, there's a consciousness, there's stuff going in it, there's a stream of consciousness. But when we're cognizing is the word, when we know, we're knowing, right? Knowing is just what it is. Knowing is knowing. And so I think when I was talking about mind, they're the appearances that appear to the mind, the appearances. But then the apprehending of that is the knowing. Like I might see some shape color. My mind sees shape color, but when I label it chair, I know it's a chair. I see some shape color out there. Tree, I know it's a tree, right? That's knowing. Does that help?
I've got a question for myself. Let's say I'm committed to the tantric way, doing a lot of initiations, practicing tantra, but why is it still important for me to practice or study the Lamrim, do the meditations accordingly? Why do we need to?
It's really important. Because if you don't study the Lamrim, you don't have any inspiration to practice Tantra. I mean, that you can't do one without the other. We constantly have to remind ourselves, I have a perfect human rebirth. I could die tomorrow. There's, these sentient beings are more kind to me than, I love, like they've all been my mother, all of that is, you can't practice. I mean, they're inseparable. Because without that, you can't really practice Tantra because there's no reason why. Why are you doing it? You just want to, get somebody that looks like a green Buddha, I mean, that's not the point. And also, the most important thing is that you can't practice Tantra if you don't understand emptiness. You absolutely have to understand emptiness. You have to have the conceptual, the generic image of emptiness to even arise as a deity. And in the beginning, it's a pretty primitive idea we have. We can imagine space. But the more we continually have to analyze and think about, what is emptiness? What is this I that appears to exist from its own side? Why does all that out there appear to be existing out there? Because as the years go by, and as we do the purification practices with the Tantra and ordinary purification, the prostrations and service and all the things we do to make merit, then our understanding of emptiness gets greater and our understanding of compassion gets greater and our wish to liberate sentient beings gets stronger. And there's just no way. I mean, I do a Lam Rim prayer almost, I mean, I do one every day, in my mind, because it's, I mean, that all the Guru is saying, death and impermanence is like, it's so important at the beginning, at the middle, at the end. You never stop studying Lam Rim and going over and over, because you see, we don't really understand it in the beginning. We think we do, but the more practice we do, the deeper and deeper and deeper our understanding becomes, until our worldview becomes transformed. And then you just see, immediately they talk about, spontaneous realizations, instead of, looking at a sentient being and thinking, oh, this has been my mother, I need to be kind to that person. The minute you see a sentient being, there's just this overwhelming flood of compassion for that being, and that's not going to come if you don't go over it intellectually, and it's really important not to just go over it intellectually, but then sit with it, like that thing when we do Refuge, you can excuse me, it's the smoke in the air here. You can have the Buddha in front of you, and you're imagining that you're taking refuge in the Buddha. But you can then also, after you've done that, you can do a little analytical meditation on death and impermanence. Death is definite. I'm going to die. I don't know when. And then think about why at the time of death, my friends aren't going to help me, my family's not going to help me, all my jewelry's not going to help me, all my cars aren't going to help me, nothing's going to help me except my mind and how I've helped my mind. And you think about that, right? And then you just imagine that the same way we're doing Refuge, that feeling of love and compassion, coming from the Buddha, is coming into you and spreading that experience of death and impermanence all throughout your body, so that like you're taking refuge in that. And that's how you go from like an intellectual understanding to it becoming who you are. Because eventually you don't want to have an intellectual understanding. You just want to be behaving as if you're going to die that night, because you've thought about it enough to know that, wow, this could be my very last day. And so what happens then? We're kind people. We think there's a little stop that comes before I lose it with somebody or get down on myself, or the whole thing I talked about your inner voice. You don't want to die with a voice like that, right? You don't want to have that in another lifetime. So yeah, you can never stop. I can't emphasize that enough. Yeah.
Oops, here is one question in the Vajrakata Sutra. Sorry.
Yeah.
Need to scroll up. It says that past, present, and future consciousnesses are not observable. Please, can you explain this? As the Buddha can see all of these.
Wait, past, present, future are unobservable or are observable?
Are not observable.
I think it's because it's talking about I don't know for sure, but I think what it means is in relationship, like when you do the Heart Sutra, there's no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no mind. What it means is that they're not inherently existent. They're not existent from their own side, right? They're relatively existing, but if you understand emptiness, they're not there, right? From the side. Okay, is that okay? I mean, that's what the Vajrakata Sutra is all about, is about emptiness. So everything in the Vajrakata Sutra is written from the point of view of someone who's realized emptiness. The same with the Heart Sutra.
As we're coming close to running out of time, there's a final question perhaps. During a meditation retreat, my guru asked how would I describe my experience of meditation. I said it felt like emptiness because all thoughts had stopped, and he responded that it was not emptiness, but that I had the quality of emptiness. What do you think he meant by that?
I think that unless you have that, emptiness isn't just spacious awareness, Emptiness is, I don't know, I haven't realized emptiness, but I'm just telling you what, it's really good if you can get to that state. That's why I said you have the quality of awareness, but you don't have what they call the insight, which means that understanding the deep understanding that the sense of I, the being that's experiencing that spacious awareness doesn't exist on its own side, that it's just merely labeled. And I think to get to that experience is not that easy. So it has to be insight, the real insight into the nature of reality. And I think when you have that experience, it's so profound. I mean, a lot of people feel fear because they're not there. You don't feel like you are there. And yeah, so but that's great. If you got that experience, that's a really good step. Yeah.
Perhaps one final question, or are we finished? I guess we are there. And this leaves us to the point where, whoops. So, where I can tell you that we're having this Green Tara Sadhana tomorrow at 7:30, not 7, but 7:30 tomorrow. And I look so much forward to it. And as you said, Paula, it's where can we start practicing Tantra? And that would be tomorrow. And you suggested a book we can read. And next Wednesday at 7:30, again with Force Translators. Next Tuesday will be another edition of the Together on the Path by a Laksan facilitator with no translators. I do hope that you will join us, because we start with a meditation, and then after that, group discussions, probably in pairs. So a good chance to discuss and debate what you have learned or your impressions.